Welcome to what is going to be the second ever segment of a Salute to Women on the Wayne Hall Show. And I'm going to go over to Zoomland where the ladies are waiting. And, also, so it's 5 awesome ladies, including the host that's going to give us the most, Miss Janice O'Shea. And, okay, grand entrance by Janice. So while Janice is entering, let me introduce just by name right now. We have a lot more information to share, but I'm going to leave that to our great host. We have Miss Georgia Wolf Samuels, Miss Dr. Shanna Grant, Miss Patricia Edigen, Jackal Tucker, and here's your host, ladies and gentlemen, that has even more information on these awesome ladies. So it's my pleasure to introduce today's host with the most and say Happy International Women's Month one more time. Welcome, ladies. It's my pleasure to have you. And I'm now going to have you in the wonderful hands of your host, Miss Janice O'Shea.
And the segment. So let's get there. Patricia Tunge Edigen, born and raised in the beautiful island of Antigua. She migrated to the U.S. in '89. Patricia is the president of the official Atlanta Caribbean Carnival, and this takes place every Memorial Day, the end of May. She has received several awards for her work in the Caribbean community. Among them, an award recently for the International Women's Day, on International Women's Day. Other awards include a Life Achievement Award from the President Joe Biden himself, along with a pin for her philanthropic work in her community. Patricia also received a Proclamation Award from the City of Atlanta, Black I Am Awards, a Woman Empowerment Award, and a Commendation Award from Governor Kemp. I will leave the rest until you speak to us back, because it's a lot, as everyone here. Dr. Grant, how are you, Shanna?
I'm doing well today. How are you guys doing?
Great. We are fine on behalf of all the ladies. Did I say good evening to your audience, Wayne? If I did, forgive me, I'm repeating it. Dr. Shanna K. Grant, CEO and founder of Sharpe Sessions and assistant professor of mathematics. Dr. Grant is an experienced mathematician who helps the students overcome their fear of math by changing the way they think and the way they approach math. She has a passion for helping others build mathematical knowledge, understanding, and skills. She's highly knowledgeable in mathematics and strives to make a positive influence in her community through research, tutoring, and professional talks. Shanna holds a Bachelor of Science degree in mathematics, a Master of Science degree and a PhD in math, with a focus in collegiate mathematics education. Dr. Grant, we will get the rest of it later.
Okay.
All right. Now we go to Georgia Wolf Samuel, CPA. Good evening, Georgia.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. I think all the ladies have been on the platform before, so a special welcome to you, Georgia.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
To the Wayne Hall Show platform. Georgia is a career entrepreneur, restaurateur, author, personal branding leadership coach. She provides and delivers results for organizations that she works for and shifts how women show up in their working world through the power of their personal brand. Her personal and professional leadership company is the Impact Agency, which empowers actions that drive impact through coaching programs, workshops, live events, speaking, and content. Georgia currently resides in Atlanta, Georgia, and she will tell you much more. And she shows up boldly. That's her tagline, show up boldly. Next, we have Mrs. Tucker herself, Jackal, the dancer. Jaquel, it was so funny to see you on the dance floor because we don't normally see that. Good evening, Jaquel.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone.
With this being our second edition of hosting Salute to Women, Jaquel, you are the veteran here because we asked you back. There had to be a reason why you were asked to join again the second time around. Jaquel Tucker, entrepreneur at J. Tucker Group. My Purpose on Fire. She will tell us a lot about that later, but it is on fire. Executive Director of the Jamaica Project USA, her personal charity effort, along with her husband, Sean Tucker. So we are gonna start off. Mr. Wayne, is there anything you want to say to us ladies before we jump into this?
Not right now. I'm just enjoying.
Okay, thank you. You had already done the
Yes,
sponsors.
we had the sponsors mentioned, and then it's all yours, Miss O'Shea.
All right. The order is going to be random, ladies.
Okay.
We are starting off with Georgia. Georgia, I'd like to know from you, how do you summarize your upbringing? What stands out to you, and who was your childhood influence?
Thank you for that question, Janice. If I was to summarize my childhood, I would summarize it in one word as challenging, right? Challenging because of the nature of how I grew up and my experiences. So I grew up in Kingston, Jamaica for the first half of my childhood. The second half was in New York in the Boogie Down Bronx, right? Where I went to middle school and high school, graduate from Evander Childs. Didn't know how I survived that school.
Yep.
And for the most part, I lived with my dad. My mother abandoned us when I was about 2 years old, right? The first time I can recall seeing my mom was when she came back to Jamaica. So one of the things that stood out for me is this experience that pretty much defined how I was showing up for a long time, right? And so the first time I can recall like seeing my mom was when she came back to Jamaica to bury her parent in St. Elizabeth. I was around age 5 and I had a brief encounter with her that would shape how I would show up for the next 35 years. Short story, as she was preparing to depart for the airport, I asked her for an antique looking brush and comb set that she was using to comb her hair. And she told me no, quite gently, right? And offered me a travel-sized bottle of Kerry lotion as a replacement. And in that brief moment, I exchanged my identity for the lies that I extracted from that experience, right? Because then, you know, my highly receptive brain interpreted her gesture to mean that I was not worthy, and hence why my mother didn't give me the brush and comb set, and that I was not enough as the reason why she would abandon me again. So this experience created for me a defining belief of who I thought I was. And I adopted a self-defining title that I thought was quite fitting. The name that I titled that version of me was Half Pint, which, you know, was based on a non-metric definition, which meant, you know, small or inconsequential. But of course, I learned this name, I garnered this name really from our own reggae artist, Half Pint, right? And I learned, growing up in Jamaica, I learned that he garnered that name because he was short. And so, you know, society, you kind of labeled him as not of normal height. So then naturally, I adopted that title to mean that I was not whole or enough and therefore not worthy. And so the additional trauma that followed in my formative and early adult years, commingled with the fact that I would never see or hear from my mom again until I was about 23 years old, cemented that belief and would influence how I showed up in my working world, in my personal relationships, and the crap I would tolerate, right? So thankfully, I was able to reframe that narrative, but not before a series of major disruptions in my life a few years ago. And because of those disruptions, which included career burnout, a TIA, which, also known as a mini stroke, and a few other health scares, I was forced to pause. And so I leaned into my faith during that season. So a combination of faith, therapy, and a whole heap of introspection to just go through that healing process, right? And so a divine intervention with God during that season, we had a conversation one morning and he told me, he says, baby girl, half pint in the world of metrics is equivalent to a full cup, right? Which then meant that I was already enough. So God helped me to turn around that narrative and reframe it. And it became the catalyst that would change the trajectory of my own life. So I could boldly step into who I am and my own narrative. And not just the narrative from that past experience, but also the narrative that I want to create and that I want to be told about me when I leave this earth.
You turned it around, everything from childhood to now. You turned around for the better. Quite interesting. Thank you, Georgia. Next up with the same question is Patricia. How do you summarize your upbringing? What stands out to you? And who was your childhood influence?
Well, Georgia, I'm so sorry you had to go through all of that. So shout out to you. I know you personally, so shout out to you. So my upbringing was a bit different. I grew up in a loving home with my mom and my dad. My mom, we were very disciplined. She was a strict mom. She was big on education. I remember growing up, my mom worked at the Ministry of Education, and a lot of children in the neighborhood, sometimes they don't pass their exams and they'll come to our home and the parents would be crying and plead with mommy to see what they could do to get their children into secondary school. And I know mommy was always there to help the folks in the neighborhood. I would say my mom was like my biggest influence growing up. I adore her so much. May her soul rest in peace. But I remember growing up, we had a neighbor. My mom was very peaceful. And we had a neighbor, and she wasn't the nicest of neighbors. I remember if we played as children and our ball go over her fence, we would never get back that ball again. Or if we had a plum tree and the tree branches go over her yard, she will just cut it off. And I remember mommy always said to us, no matter what she does, when you're passing, always say good morning and good afternoon. And I could never understood that. And I said, mommy, I want to be like you, but I don't want to be like that. You're too soft and you let people take advantage of you. So I said, growing up, that's one thing that I'll make sure that no one takes advantage of me. I'll always make sure I stand up for myself.
Yes.
And do what I have to do. And so I put that to my kids. So I would say my mom was my influence growing up. And I can't complain about my childhood, Mommy was all about education. I have a BA in accounting. I have an MBA and in business administration. A lot of people think I only do carnival. And I always say to people, I'm more than carnival, okay? I have 2 degrees, and that's why I could do such a good job with carnival, because I'm a businesswoman.
You're a business.
I currently work in accounting with a major firm. People don't think I work too. So I do work beside carnival. And I work from home. I have a lot of clients that I deal with on a daily basis. And I also started a nonprofit organization during COVID. While I was at home, I saw a lot of persons on Facebook was going through mental challenge, and I would cook and I would post up my food and I would say, hey, inmates, because we all was stuck at home. And I would say, what are you guys cooking today? And I'll put up my pumpkin fritters, and people ask me what's the recipe, and I'll put up different foods. And I said, you know what? At least some of us still have jobs. Right. And I put a post on social media and say, hey, how about some of us come together and start this nonprofit and give back to those in need? It doesn't take much. And so that was the rebirth of Blessed Hands, Generous Hearts, which started in 2020. We have donated to Antigua every year. We go home in July and we give back food, and everything is brand new. Clothes, back to school and laptops. And those are money that we get, and we get a sponsor. Big up to Snyder Foundation, who's one of our biggest sponsor and help us giving back. And we also give back here in the US. And for the last 2 years, I've traveled to Nigeria, and we give back to those in need. This last year, I visited a lot of the different orphanage, and we gave back donations. Some places I was terrified, but my husband was with me, and so we gave back. So I love to give back because, our motto is when we bless others, God bless us.
Yeah, blessed to be blessed. And I can tell you, Pat, I see that standing up for yourself in how you conduct yourself in the community.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next up, Miss Jaquel. Same questions. Upbringing, what stands out, and your childhood influence.
Well, first of all, it's a privilege being here with you ladies. It's what we've had to overcome, whether it's good or not so good, that shapes who we are right now. And God means for us to use it to help other people. And so I am just elated to hear your stories. And for me, my growing up is, it's a story of resilience. It's a story of purpose. It's a story of prayer. And let's just start with who is my role model and who's really shaped my life. And I would say it's my mom. Mm-hmm. It's my mom who ran in the house and grabbed my lifeless body when I passed away. I got really sick between 5 and 6 years old. It's the first time in my life I'm really starting to share this publicly, and I did it in the magazine Thrive, in which I was featured in, and prayed over this lifeless body that was laying there, passed away for, I don't know how long, for the day when they had left to go to church and finally came back. And prayer brought me back. Prayer bringing me back means that there is a purpose to my life. And so it took me a while to find it. All I knew was I was now very, very focused. I don't know why, focused in my studies in education. Growing up in a rural community in poverty in Jamaica, where, you're standing in a shopkeeper's shop trying to trust some food, whether it's flour or rice, so your parents can cook. I had 8 siblings, and my mom and my dad and my grandparents lived next door. So standing in there and not even having the money to pay for that, you have to trust that. To fast forward in COVID, the worst time in the good old US of A and everywhere else, where so much was lost, and to have the opportunity through my nonprofit, the Jamaica Project USA, founded by my husband Sean and I, to be out there with our team and seeing the trucks pull up from the USDA, 18-wheelers full of food, it took me right back to that moment. Yes. Where it's a mission and a journey of purpose. I look at all the cars lined up, the organizations lined up to get food that was provided through God to my organization to feed up to 2,000 families a month. This girl who we couldn't even sometimes afford dinner. And that's the journey. So when I look at it, it's all woven together. And how we grew up, it's a story of resilience. I didn't have a doll growing up. We would pluck grass and wash the roots as hair, and we would tie it with strings together, and that was it. You fast forward to this point where I was granted a full academic scholarship when I left Westwood High School, started COMC, and it started showing me something. Yeah, okay, God brought me back, and it means he had a way for me. So I would say to anybody, it doesn't matter how you started, what it might look like in your situation, whether you're Jamaica or you're in another country, Nigeria, wherever the countries you visit, Pat, these kids, they have a dream, they have a purpose, and God is the one who's going to orchestrate it. What was on my mind was to study. I didn't know why I was so adamant about studying, and God put that in me because he knew education was going to be my ticket out. And out of thousands in Jamaica, I was one of 20 full academic scholarship to the University of Maine. And that's what I want to show kids. that's what I also want to show adults, your path, and that what he has for you is for you. But the story of resilience, we made a way, we made things happen. We found joy in whatever we were doing. And it was one step forward and one step forward. Whatever you can control, that's what you take control of, and be obedient and do it. And it's God who does the rest. So you take that and you fast forward it. And with the accomplishments I've had in the US, it's just been incredible. And I'll just quickly share this breaking news now on the Wayne Hall show. I have not shared it publicly, but I actually, so here I was a director of sales and marketing in the hospitality industry. I've worked in markets like New Jersey, New York, Bucket, Atlanta here, and I transitioned to entrepreneurship, right? I've trained hotel sales team, customer service, leadership at conferences for hotels, you name it. And lately I've just been helping entrepreneurs, find out what God's calling them to do and launch a purpose-driven business or a nonprofit. But I recently took on another venture because everything is coming full circle, and that's how God works. And so I just want to share, publicly that my new venture, added to everything else, is I'm the new vice president of sales and marketing. Talk about working with individuals to do this, and a city comes calling. So I am the new VP of sales and marketing for the city of East Point, new convention bureau. So, just an opportunity to really, help to build the identity of that city, to brand it and to take the message to the world, and, really help align the actual reality of right now with the vision of where it's going. So I would say that no matter where you're coming from, count the struggles joy, count the challenges joy, because God is going to weave it together for something good. And that's how you're going to impact people.
Oh my goodness. You heard it here first, guys. Before we move to Shanna, congrats, Jaquel. And let me remind our audience, the theme for this year's Women History Month, celebrating women who tell our stories. Emphasis on our, because we can see so far how the stories intertwine and they are just common items among you. Thank you. We will hear more after Shanna comes up. Hey, Shanna, could you summarize your upbringing? What stands out? Your childhood influence, not necessarily in that order. And then we will go to a commercial break. Thank you, Jaquel. Welcome, Shanna.
Thank you for having me. I usually question and I say, I wonder why they picked me, because when I looked at the lineup, I was like, oh my goodness, Jaquel, I admire you so much. You do so much. You are always for Christ. And I just really admire that in you. And congratulations again. Thank you guys for having me tonight. So for me, my mom and dad were not married. So I grew up with my mom. And what really stands out is we moved around quite a bit, but no matter where we went, education, I think that's kind of what's coming out here, was like the focal thing, right? I was always in school. I always had my shoes, whatever I needed for shoes, right? Even my dad would say, you will get everything that you need and some of what you want, right? And so anything I needed for education, so I would go to him, I need uniform, I need books, and I would get that, right? But I know for me, what really stuck with me when I grew up throughout my high school childhood in Jamaica, and then moved to the United States, she told me, and it stuck with me to the point where it's even in my dissertation. She said, you want to make sure you go to school and get a good education so you don't have to depend on anyone. And for me, I took it literally, right? So when I came to the United States and I saw all the opportunities, I took advantage of all of it. And so, what that kind of did for me was I saw that there were a lot of opportunities, but sometimes students are not aware of it. And so initially, math is my strong suit. For some reason, I just excel at it. I love numbers. And so I was good at it. But essentially, I wanted to be an accountant of some sort. But God has a way of telling you that's not what you're going to do. So, you know, I had to take a detour when I was in my graduate studies, maybe 2 detours, because I was really trying to do my own thing. And then I was kind of directed to the education space. It's interesting when you tell anyone that you're a mathematician or you're majoring in mathematics, they say, oh, you're going to be a teacher. And so I tried very hard to steer away from that, right? So at any rate, I ended up in teaching, but now I kind of see why, right? I have a passion for serving students and for educating students, right? Because, you know, I think I made a post about this when I announced my new book, a toolkit for raising wealthy kids. So, you know, a lot of times students and parents don't really know what is available to them in terms of how to get your education debt-free and how to really build wealth and those type of things. And so I'm seeing where now my goals are shifting a little bit in that area, where in my business, I am working to help students go to college debt-free through SAT prep. I recently got a grant from the NSF, $1.4 million, to give scholarships so that students can come to my university debt-free, right? And then now I'm writing this book that is helping parents educate their kids on how to build wealth. And it's also educating parents, right? Because sometimes I know, I was telling a friend, if I knew what I think if my mom and dad knew what I was putting in the book, nobody would know me because I would be wealthy already. And so God works in his own way, because he knew I probably wouldn't be here. So, you know, but I just find it so fascinating. And so every time I hear something new, I want to share it and say, hey, you can do it too. One thing that really influenced me when I was in high school, my teacher, I was very smart, but I was also very fast or quick at the mouth, if you may say. And so Miss David, she pulled me to the side one day and she said, your attitude will determine your altitude.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, you know, when they say that cut you down, that cut me down, but it was good. Right? Because what that showed me is you can be the smartest person in the room, but if you don't have the right attitude, you not get where you need to be. And, you know, it goes to what I do too with the mindset that you have, right? If you have a mindset that you can do something, right, then you're gonna do it. But if you tell yourself that this is not for me, I cannot do it, then you will not accomplish it. And so again, in my tutoring services or in anything that I do, like my book, the first chapter is how to get a mindset to build wealth, or how to get a mindset to overcome and get a great grade on the SAT so you can go debt free. So all of this is intertwined to say, I'm very passionate about serving students and, you know, helping them to get their degrees debt free, or to help parents to help their students or their children to, you know, go to college debt free. And I don't know, but God is working and I'm just following where he's taking me.
Shanna, the common denominator here with all you ladies, and you have repeated it over and over, prayer and God. And you said you wondered why Wayne and I selected you among our very esteemed specialists. And I think the audience and the other panelists, you have all answered that question. It's a process, it's a formula that we both use. And we don't even have to say why you were selected. Okay, so that was wonderful. The fact that you brought up, which most of our Caribbean parents, as we know, when it comes to education, it's like there's no other way to go, you know. So I really do appreciate that. Ladies, you will have a break. You'll get a break. Mr. Hall is taking us to commercial to pay the bills, and we'll be right back. You can do your touch-up, get your water. We'll be back.
Mikey Sparkle Production presents the Atlanta Caribbean Family Fun Day 2023, featuring reggae mega superstars Mikey Spice and Richie Stevens.
I've got a weakness. sweetness for sweetness.
Backed by the SWAT Band. Father's Day, June 18. Lithonia Amphitheater, 2515 Park Drive, Lithonia, Georgia, 30058. Sound by First Love, Steely Bashment, DJ Cold Rice, Bugsy Bam Bam, Rico Vibes, John Wayne, DJ Bree Bree, all on the ones and twos. MC Oliver Samuels, Jamaica's King of Comedy, and Oliver Mayer, Consul General. Also featuring Chub Rock and the Weekend Warriors. Bring your chairs and umbrellas to this family event. 18 and under free. Adults 50 pre-sold. More at the gate. Visit Mikey Sparkle online for tickets. Sponsors: Foundation Radio, T-Rob Network, Wayne Hall Show, Island Vibes TV, RockTheBox.net, 25th Century Radio, Golden Crust, Irie Zion FM, and The Flavor Radio, a Mikey Sparkle production.
What the world needs now is more than a vacation. We need to come back to feeling our best selves again. Back to inviting. Back to caring. Back to life. Back to the little bit of Jamaica that's inside all of us. Come back to being lively again. Back to laid back. Back to romantic. Back to fantastic. Come back to making the best decisions you've ever made. Because, hey, we're in Jamaica. Come back to mouth-watering, heart-pumping, breathtaking. It's time, don't you think? Come back to the vibe that comes alive in Jamaica.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen, you are watching, you are listening to Saluting Women 2023 with your host, Miss Janice O'Shea, and her awesome panel of women. What an interesting first segment. I heard survival. I heard the desire to be strong. I heard resilience. I heard prayer. And I also heard that if you don't have the right attitude, you won't get to the right altitude. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to return to the conversation with your host, Miss Janice O'Shea. You're good to go, Janice.
Good to go. Yes. Welcome back, ladies. Our next segment start off with this topic. I would like for you to share exactly what you do for a living. I know you have all touched on that somewhat, but we would just like it repeated or add to what you had. And for those who are just joining us on all the Wayne Hall Show platforms, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and WayneHallShow.com, welcome. You are watching and listening to Salute to Women on the Wayne Hall Show. So ladies, any obstacles that is facing women today, that you think is facing women today, and how marginalized are women in 2023? We are starting with Patricia.
Okay. So, as I stated before, I currently work in accounting. I work with a major firm. I usually don't tell what company I work for. I always keep my company private. I do sales and use tax for a lot of clients from all over. So currently I have about 30 clients. What I do is import their data and do their sales and use tax, and we file their taxes like monthly, quarterly, semi-annual, and annual. And we also have a department that does their notices. So I'm a lot of the point of contact for the client. So that's what I do on a daily basis. Plus, I'm the president of Atlanta Carnival. I'm the president of Blessed Hands, Generous Hearts, a nonprofit organization. I think the biggest obstacles that are facing women are gender gap, the pay. We're not being paid enough as men. And that has always been a problem for years. It doesn't matter how smart you are or how much you put yourself out there, men always seems to get the highest pay. And I think that's one of the biggest problems that are facing women. As far as I think marginalized, I think maybe inferiority. You know, it's like we're less inferior to men. Like, for example, big shots out to Kamala Harris for even becoming the VP of the United States. Once upon a time, they don't even want women to become VP. They don't even want women to become president because they feel like we're too emotional. So we work with our emotions, you know? And so I think that's one of the things that they have to put aside. Yes, women can be emotional, but at the same time, we have proven that we can do the job that men do. You're on mute.
Unmute, Janice.
Thanks, Pat. Yes, what you just said, and you using Kamala Harris as your reference, I thought of that while you were speaking. So we are gonna, thanks, Pat. We are moving over to Georgia with the same questions: what you do, any obstacles you view facing women today, and how marginalized are women for 2023.
Awesome. Thank you for that question, Janice. So I'm a CPA by trade for the last 20 plus years, working in Big Four. I am a senior manager at this level. I just transitioned out of public accounting and more so into internal audit within Big Four. And so I'm also a restaurateur. I'm owner alongside my husband of the Escoviches brand, which includes the Escoviches restaurant and the Escoviches event center. Going into our 4th year now. I am also an author. My latest book is titled Redefining Her, My Journey to Self-Acceptance and Love. And I'm working on another one that I'm hoping to finalize before the end of the year, hopefully. And this one is more focused and geared towards career women. I'm also the founder of the Impact Agency, where I serve career women as a personal branding and career coach to help them transform from hidden gems in their organizations to bold brands that empowers them to propel their potential, their impact, and their income in and but beyond their careers. In terms of if women are still marginalized, I think we have come a long way as it relates to initiatives geared at creating equity for women, but I still think we have a long way to go, right? Yes, you know, I second what Patricia said in terms of gaps as it relates to equal pay, but also gaps as it relates to opportunities that propels us, right? And so as there are ongoing DEI initiatives in many organizations around the globe, I think it's important that as women, we are equipped to, right, move beyond our lids and boldly prepare ourselves to step into or create the spaces that we were born to occupy. And I think that responsibility is on us. So yes, it's important that we have allies in our organizations and around us, but I also think it's very important for us to take responsibility for our own brand and to prepare ourselves to occupy those spaces or create those spaces.
I like the title of your book, Georgia, Redefining Her.
Thank
and
you.
when I got your bio, I said, I thought impact was an acronym.
It is.
It is. So when I listen carefully now, I know what exactly you mean, EMPACT.
Yeah, EMPACT. So it's
EMPACT, right?
Correct. So it's empowering actions. So it's more than, and the back meaning, so it's actually like in the Urban Dictionary. And it's actually more, you teach someone not only how to fish, but empower them with the possibilities to do beyond what I myself or they had ever imagined.
Okay. Thanks for breaking that down. Thanks,
You're
Georgia.
welcome.
Shanna, you are up next.
Yes. So in terms of what I do, again, I help students overcome their fear of math by changing the way they think and approach mathematics. And one of the things that I really focus on is what we call the growth mindset. And so if a student has the growth mindset, that means they believe that they can learn, abilities and then grow to get better, right? So for instance, if you go to an interview, you may hear, do you believe a leader is born or a leader is made, right? Someone with a growth mindset would say a leader is made because someone can learn the traits of a leader and then, grow to become that. So what we do is we try to make sure that any service that we provide, whether it's professional development to train teachers how to teach math, whether it's tutoring, SAT prep, or even in our financial literacy book that's coming out, we always try to help anyone who is being serviced how to think and train them how to cultivate a growth mindset. So that's my, I guess you could say my side hustle, you could say. So my main job, I guess you could say, is I'm also a professor. And I can tell my university, Fort Valley State University, we're the #1 HBCU in Georgia. And so essentially I am the director of the DMAX, and this is Driving Math Competency Through STEM Modeling. This is a scholarship for students who are interested in pursuing mathematics or math and computer science, and they'll get a full scholarship. And so it was very interesting how I got this grant. I am the youngest at the university to get something like this. The only one to ever get it in the department. I don't even know how I got it, but I know it's God. Maybe I should just say, I know how I got it, God, because honestly, I don't even know what I wrote in that thing. But in my space, what I do is I use my experience to help students get better and get better opportunities. And so that's what I do in general. Now, in terms of challenges, I'll speak from a personal standpoint. So in mathematics, dependent on where you go, women are definitely seen as less than, right? Where are we going? Especially if you're a Black woman, what are you doing, right? I graduated Fort Valley, and then I went straight into a PWI, which is a predominantly white institution. And I remember the first professor, the first thing he said in his class was, "I'm known to give good grades, but I have tenure now." And I go, okay, great. So for those of us who don't know, tenure means it's less likely for you to be fired, or it's a very hard process. So it's like you're safe now as a professor.
Yeah.
And this same person would have, if a female student goes to him, they would come out of his office crying. He was very nasty, but he was just showing us that women are what he thinks, right? Women shouldn't be in this space. And honestly, when I was in the classroom, it was just me, right? And so, I look at it and I say, well, I have to be that example for others to see, right? Because I don't know if you guys are familiar, but I got kicked out of the program and I had to divert and do a master's before the PhD. And then I went back to the PhD. And, in the midst of that, I said, well, I can't give up, because then that will prove that, well, we don't belong in this space. And even though it was very challenging for me, it meant a lot, especially, trying to, if you tell me I can't do something, or you try to show me that I'm less, I show you the opposite, right? And so in terms of being marginalized, I think we've come a long way. I'll echo what Georgia said. We've come a long way, and it's very commendable. The glass ceilings are being broken. We're having first female CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. I think we're going to have the first female president sometime soon, right? But I think we still have a long way to go. I think it will start with us blending together, pulling resources together to pull each other up. Instead of looking at ourselves as competition and those type of things, I think it's important that we mesh together, use our resources so we can get stronger and, be recognized for who and what we are.
I think we lost our wonderful host, so I'm the next one to go. So I'll just dive into it, and hopefully we'll get her back on soon.
That's right. Go ahead.
Yes. So in answering that question, I certainly echo what you ladies have said. We've come a long way. when I go back and look at my mom's days, and as we talk about all the time, the shoulders that we can now stand on. You know, my mom never had like a high school education, but it didn't stop her from doing what she needed to do with her life because she found her purpose. She found her lane, even from back then. So, you know, I would say as far as how I help people, you know, I like to see people find their purpose and maximize this purpose, this passion, this potential. And that translates in everything that I do. And, you know, I do that through, you know, even with having a nonprofit. You know, I found out with my husband, Sean, the Jamaica Project USA, and our mission is to transform rural schools and communities in Jamaica, starting 2016. And we've served, you know, local communities here in Georgia as well with resources, low income communities. But we served over 22 schools and communities in Jamaica, 8 improvement projects. We've sponsored 79 kids. And so now we're actually starting our largest project this year is construction of our first rural community and resource center. And in business, I'm the same way. In hospitality, as a director of sales and marketing, I was the same way. It's really spotting people's potential and helping them to grow in their position. You know, if I'm leading them, then I want them to grow and advance, and never being afraid to teach people what I know, because they need to grow and advance into their fullest potential. And if I have a problem with that, it means that's because I am not advancing in my fullest potential. So as women, what I will say is we have to carefully look at that. I know that there are a lot more opportunities now created for women. And also we're now in a culture and space where we can create opportunities for others, but we've got to be bold and brave enough to recognize what that is, learn what it is, and get into that lane, launch this thing, and realize we're called for more significance than where we currently are. So we have to realize that we can create our seat at the table. But even in that corporate space, right, how many women have gotten a seat at the table, and what was done with that seat of the table? Do we remember then what we've had to overcome, the struggles that we've had, and who now are we going to reach back and help? How are we going to affect change when we get that opportunity to be at the table? And so these are things to carefully consider. You know, have a plan for when those opportunities come, because the younger generation is depending on us as well. And we've got to realize that we are empowered. We are called, we're equipped, we are qualified. And the more we start believing in that, the more that we're going to exert this confidence when we go up for these positions against men. And, you know, we've talked about this before, even on this platform, where a man will go for a job and he doesn't know a thing about the job. They offer it to him and he says, yes, sure, I'm going to do it. I could do it. And a woman's like, hold on, let me go get this degree and that degree. Oh, we're the ones who start feeling like we're not qualified, right? And so that presents a challenge for us. So we sometimes have to step forward. We don't know it all, but just know enough of what we're qualified to do and be prepared to push through the hard things when we get those opportunities and learn, because others are dependent on it. So we've come a long way. We're still continuing to move forward, but our goal is to really impact change when we're given these opportunities to do so, find our lane. And that's where some of this comes from. We are in spaces and areas where we're tolerated, not celebrated, because sometimes that's not where we need to be. And so when we can find that, then we can confidently move forward and really thrive in the areas that we were born to. So like you all said as well, a lot of this also does rest with us. And so this is how we've got to help our younger generations. And I know Dr. Grant works with a lot of, students, and then doing, your summer initiatives as well. And I know these are things that you are imparting into these young girls. And so we need a lot more of us to do that. And the same way our family or parents or moms sacrificed a lot for us and they had to struggle. I'm not going to say it's that much easier for us, but opportunities are now more available to us. And so we've got to keep passing that on for the next generation so it gets better and better.
Thank you for that. I apologize for the glitch, but you touched on something where I broke when Shanna spoke about her experience, that particular challenge, and then you came in with the seat at the table. And I can say we all have some experience as far as that particular challenge goes, Jaquel. And you were on the same order when you spoke about having a seat at the table. We are going to take a brief commercial break, Mr. Hall, or are we continuing?
Actually, we're not in lieu of time. And
right.
We're going to ask our awesome panelists to keep it at 5 minutes for this final segment. And I'm just enjoying looking at Jenny's nice shirt, by the way.
Well, I knew that would come up at some point. So moving right along, ladies, we're going to omit the break as you had in the order. So let us start off with Georgia. And this one, looking ahead, ladies, women are holding more positions of power. Do you feel like women are poised for a takeover? That can be controversial, but it's gonna heat up. It's gonna be interesting. Explain, and what are you most proud and hopeful for women as a whole moving forward?
Thank you, Janice. I think women have always been powerful. We just didn't know our power, right? The problem is that many times society or our own experiences may have conditioned us to believe otherwise. I don't think the goal is for women to take over. That's just my, my thought process. But what I do think is that God is doing a mighty work and movement through women, and that our gifts are needed to move the world forward. And so for that to be possible, we must boldly own our power and step into the purpose for which we were created. So whether it's a solo calling or one where we stand next to our partners, either way, we are poised to own and operate in power. And so my focus is not necessarily that we are poised to take over. It's that we are poised to own our power and to step into the spaces that we were born to occupy and even sometimes create. And so I'm hopeful, right, that for women, my hope for women overall is that they recognize their own significance, because when we value what we carry and embrace our own significance, we are then equipped to not just thrive, but to make an impact in the world around us and to move us forward.
I like that, Georgia. Own our power.
Yes, we have it. Own it.
Point well taken. Patricia.
For me personally, I think respect. I think women need to be respected. For example, even during Carnival, I get fight down so much, and it's mostly from men. And like Jaquil said, we need a seat at the table. We do. As Caribbean women, I think we need to get more involved in politics. I would have, but I remember before I got married, my husband asked me to promise him one thing: never to get involved in politics. So I made that promise, so now I can't go back on it. But the stuff that I have to go through, just doing Carnival alone, I would have gotten involved in politics. As women, and we are the voice, and as a woman, doing something like Carnival is something that the position that men mostly hold. So as a woman, I don't feel that I get the respect as if I was a guy. So my fight is different. So I have to go harder and work harder, even just to get before the mayor, the stuff that I have to do. But I'm one that don't back down. Like, for example, last week I had a little meltdown and I called a friend of mine, and, she spoke with me and she said, listen, as women, you have your right. And guess what? Fight back. So that's what I did. I fought back. So I think we just need to be respected overall. we have a brains just like anybody. I think we need to empower each other too and stop the bickering, the hate, and, you know, and just respect and loving each other and empower each other. Just like Jackie will say, you know, if you're a leader, you empower the next person. You don't want to, you know, say, okay, I'm not going to train this person because they're going to be, you know, they're going to get the higher position than I am. Let me tell you, what God had for us, nobody could take from us. Because remember, when he breathed life into us, he already know what we're going to do. Okay? I'm telling you, I got into a car accident 5 minutes away from my home. I don't know what happened. It was just raining that night. And the next thing I remember saying, oh, Lord. And when I got through, a car jumped the median and hit me head on. And they got more damage than I did. My left hand was damaged, but thank God it's much better now. But, you know, certain things I can't lift with my left hand. And then I said, that was God. He has a purpose for me. And I always said, God, show me my purpose. Then last year, I was driving with my girls and I was going to this event and I didn't really want to go. And I asked my girls to come with me. And sometimes you got to follow your spirit. And I said to my girls, come and hang out with mommy. They didn't really want to go either. And I forced them to come with me. And when we were driving, it was raining. It was pouring that Saturday. And next thing, the tires skid and we went right into a tree and hit the tree head on. And I had my 2 daughters with me. And God took us out of that. And I said, listen, God has a purpose for me. So whatever it is, I'm here to do it. So thanks for having me. Appreciate all of you.
Sure does. Pat, I do have a quick question before you go. On the matter of whether you think women are poised to lead more, let me say it like that. Can I get a brief?
Sure, we're poised to lead, but we're born leaders. We are born leaders. We're born with that, and we could lead. It's just the fight that we get, but we can lead. And one day it's going to happen. And we're going to be presidents. We're going to be CEOs. Right now, women are CEOs. They own. The other day, I was looking at this woman that owned a trucking company. Another lady from the Bahamas. She owned a lot of airlines. So women are poised to lead. We're born leaders. So yes, you'll be leading. One day we will.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'm so happy that you got out of all of that with those 2 wrecks. We are now going, thank you, Patricia. We are now going to Shanna.
Unmute.
Yes. Well, you know, I think we're already the backbone, right? Because think about it, you know, the husbands come to us, the brothers come to us. So we're already taking over. We are just in the background now. But we're coming out to the forefront at this point, right? We're getting a voice, we're getting more confidence, and those type of things. And what I would say, or what I would add to what was said previously, is you're seeing now a lot of organizations that are coming together to make space for us, or to make room, as you would say, for us. And these are women who are some are women forming this organization. I guess some are men as well. For instance, there are grants out there to help entrepreneur women in business. You have different programs that are set up for women who are, you know, interested in going into business. And so I think, I don't know that we want to take over. I think we just want to be seen for who we are, and we want to be respected for who we are. And so I think, you know, based on where we are, what the progress we've made thus far, what I would love, or what I'm hopeful for, is that, you know, I think Jaquel said it, and it was said earlier, that we don't brew this thing called jealousy, right? Because we're all after the same thing when you think about it. We're all after the respect. We're all after the equity, the equal pay, these things, right? And so what I'm hopeful for is that we will continue to mention each other's name in rooms that we may not even step into, right? If you know of somebody who can do a job that is, you know, being sought for, mention that person's name, right? And, you know, bring each other up, you know, bind together, and let's, I guess, take over.
There you go. Dr. Grant and the Grants. Thank you, Shannon. Jaquel is up next.
Okay, so what Georgia said, what Patricia said, what Shana said, yes. So absolutely. As far as the poise to lead more or the takeover, I would say yes, I agree that we have always been leading, women lead in the home, and it's just in other spaces is to be seen as qualified to take on that. Sometimes we are our worst enemies as women. And, I am just going to be blunt about it. When I see some situations and we feel that women do not get respect or they're treated a certain way or they're not taken seriously or they can't seem to advance, it's because we are doing that to each other too, right? So a guy will say, well, that's what y'all do to each other anyway, right? So until we also start collaborating more and celebrating each other more, and so they can see that as well, and start looking at women differently. And that's just a part of it. And the rest of it is based on how it's just been in society. But things are changing. It's just usually that's what it was. Back in the day, when I was growing up, most of the women were, housewives taking care of the kids while the man was farming or whatever. That's how it was in Jamaica. Sometimes my mom would go with my dad, but for the most part is needing to take care of the kids. And so that now translates into now how many years later, but instead as farmers, men are CEOs of companies and all of that. And so it's the mindset change that means that women can come out. Women can come out and be CEOs too, and that is changing. So we will continue to see more and more of that and owning our positions when we are in them and actually just making sure that we are giving others opportunities. And so we have a chance to create opportunities, and we should always be looking for that because we are the change makers. The same changes we make in the house, as much passion and vision and focus as we, to change the furniture and the drapes. Listen, when we get in the workplace, let's look to impact change because we can be drivers of change. All right. And so that's what I would conclude with. It's platforms like this that gives us a voice, so thank you to the Wayne Hall Show. And, having you lead, Janice, having you lead something like this just shows like how well we can get together and have these conversations and really great initiatives and actions and encouragement and all the things, inspiration can come out of it to inspire the next generation and the men who are watching, because we never want men to feel like, oh, we're the bad guys, because honestly, they're really good men, and we're seeking to be good partners with them because together we can do a lot more.
Amazing, Jaquel. Thanks for that leading into our wrap up. And I am taking away always leading, the backbone, respect, own our power. And as we wrap this segment, our part 2 of Salute to Women on the Wayne Hall Show, I'd like to give an opportunity for the other 3 ladies to just say your final piece. Patricia?
I just want to say thank you and the Wayne Hall Show for thinking of me and joining this panel. And thanks to the other ladies on this panel. It was a great segment. And Georgia, I'm coming for my chicken pasta. Thank you guys so much.
Georgia, you're next.
Janice, I'm sorry, Janice. Patricia, you're talking about pasta. I want to taste that pumpkin fritters. I have it written down here, so I'm holding you to it. Anyhow, I want to say thank you to the Wayne Hall Show. Thank you, Janice. Thank you to all the other ladies on this panel. I really enjoyed hearing your stories. Very inspirational. And I just want to thank Wayne for creating this platform for us to really be able to tell our stories and just pretty much bringing the Caribbean to the forefront and keeping us live and keeping us going. So definitely thank you. And thank you, Janice, for hosting as well.
It's my pleasure. Shanna?
Yes, I echo the same sentiments. Thank you for even thinking of me. I feel really honored to even be here to share my story. I think it's always a blessing because sometimes sharing your story can encourage somebody else who may be watching, who may be going through something, or a challenge or something, or may even doubt themselves to see that there are other persons out here who have overcome what you are going through currently. And we can also be a resource. So I'm always open if there's anybody who needs, whether it's in general, in personal life space or in the education space, in the financial literacy space, I'm very open to help. That's one thing that I always want to say. So if anybody reaches out for my contact information, feel free to share that with them. Again, thank you guys so much for having me. It was really a pleasure.
We will be happy to share the information of all 4 of you ladies. We are so happy that you accepted the invitation. We do apologize for the short notice. But as Wayne told us earlier, last Saturday was the reason. So, yes. But we're so happy to have you. Back to you, Wayne.
All right. Well, wow. You know, just humbling listening to these women. I want to thank you, women, for coming to share your stories on our platform. You know, this medium, this is exactly what it's about. It's called, it's slogan, motto, however you describe it, is where information meets music. And we had that before you came on, the music, and you surely have shared some invaluable stuff with us. My takeaway is the strength, the survival, you know, the spiritual depth, and also the resilience, and very important, the determination I heard that ran through this conversation tonight. So I am truly honored and blessed that you took time to grace our platform with what you've brought this evening. It's very substantive. I hope the audience, and I know they will, appreciate where you came from and what you delivered tonight. And again, happy International Women's Month. As it winds down, continue to blaze a path that, you know what, will just make it easier and better for both men and women to follow. Thank you, ladies. Janice, thank you for being an awesome host as usual. Ladies, thank you for sharing your stories. It's been our pleasure here at the Wayne Hall Show. You have a great rest of your evening.
Have a good night.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.